Hello, this is Lindsay Simmonds, and this is a podcast for LSJS's Elul 2018. The title of this podcast is Isaac's Restraint, Rosh Hashanah and Self-Sacrifice. Sacrifice has several meanings, and if we look at the definitions in the OED, there are three. Number one, an act of slaughtering an animal or person or surrendering a possession as an offering to a deity. Number two, an act of giving something valued for the sake of something else, regarded as more important or worthy. And number three, a chess definition, a move intended to allow the opponent to win a pawn or piece for strategic or tactical reasons. Now, if we have a look at number two, an act of giving up something valued for the sake of something else regarded as more important or worthy, I'm reminded of the recent advertisement that Nike brought out, controversial advertisement, with Colin Kaepernick, a US football player known for his protest against racism in the United States. The strapline on the poster reads as follows: "Believe in something, even if it means sacrificing everything." And this, I think, is very pertinent to the topic at hand. What I want to think about is who is involved in this particular event. It is considered as a test of Avraham, but on the other hand, we call it Akedat Yitzchak, the binding or restraint of Isaac. Both are clearly active participants in this event. Let's have a look at the psukim, the verses. These are in Bereshis, in Genesis chapter 22, and there's about 14 verses that consider the story. So it is a small narrative piece about a very large event. So verse 6 reads as follows: Abraham took the wood for the burnt offering and put it on his son Isaac. He himself took the firestone and the knife, and the two walked off together. And that phrase, V'yelchu shnehem yachtav, the two of them walked together, is repeated again in verse 8. Except in verse 8, we've had previously the question of Isaac to his father: Father, where is the sacrifice? Where's the sheep to be slaughtered? So this verse 8 follows that question and says the following: And Abraham said, God will see to the sheep for his burnt offering, my son. And again, and the two of them walked on together. This seems to mean that both before and after Isaac knows about what is about to happen, he nevertheless walks in partnership with his father. And Rashi, our most famous biblical commentator, says the following: And they both went together. Before the question, he says, Abraham, who was aware that he was going to slay his son, walked along with the same willingness and joy as Isaac, who had no idea of the matter. And after the question in verse 8, he says, this means he will look out for and choose a lamb for himself, and if there'll be no lamb for a burnt offering, then my son, you will be the offering. And although Isaac then understood that he was traveling on to be slain, yet they both went together with the same ready heart. Rav David Kimchi, also a French biblical commentator, expands this idea and says the following: when Isaac was actually bound, seems to be a problem. How can it be that a 36-year-old man, 37-year-old man, can be bound by his elderly father? He says the following: he bound both his hands and his feet so he should not involuntarily kick when the knife would strike him. This was in spite of the fact that Isaac was perfectly willing to be the offering. He was afraid that at the last minute he would rebel. That is, Isaac was afraid, and he asked his father to tie him securely. This means, of course, that both of them worked in partnership. And both these ideas from Rashi and Radak are found in the Midrash, in Bereshis Rabbah 56:4. And right at the end of that Midrash, we see the following line: V'yelchu shnehem yachtav, the two of them walk together. Ze la'akod v'ze la'aked, ze lishchot v'ze l'shachet. One to do the binding and one to be bound, one to do the slaughtering and one to be slaughtered. It's very clear here that Isaac is an active participant in this event. And the question is, what does it mean to sacrifice oneself? Later, in Bamidbar, in the book of Numbers, chapter 9, verses 1 and 2, the Jewish people are given the sacrifices that they bring to the temple at different festivals. And when it comes to Rosh Hashanah, we see chapter 29, verse 2, Va'asisem Ola, l'urech nicharach l'Hashem, you shall bring a burnt offering of a pleasing odour to God, 1 bull of the herd, 1 ram, 7 yearling lambs without blemish. But The language used at the beginning of this pasuk is very unusual. Va'asisem olah. Usually the language used is v'hikravtem, you will bring, you will come close, as in the language of korban, sacrifice. And the Gemara in the Yerushalmi in Rosh Hashanah chapter 4, halacha 8 says, B'chol ha-korbanas ksiv v'hikravtem. Generally, when you bring a korban, it always says, and you shall bring close, with the word karov, v'chan ksiv va'asisem. But here it's written, va'asisem, you will do. And to some extent, it is understood by the Yerushalmi that the asisem means you will become, you will be in olah, you will sacrifice yourself. Because the Gemara continues with a response of God. God says, since Bnei Yisrael, since the children of Israel come before God on Rosh Hashanah, given that they accept my din, my judgment, I will allow them to leave the courtroom, as it were, in peace. I will create them anew. They will, as it were, have sacrificed themselves, and I will create them anew. Recently, the Emeritus Chief Rabbi Jonathan Sachs has created a BBC Radio 4 series called Morality in the 21st Century. In one of them, The Selfie Generation, he speaks to philosopher David Brooks. And he asks him about commitment and about freedom. And David Brooks says the following. So much of our lives is defined by what the definition of freedom is. So there's a definition of freedom that's common now, which is absence of restraint. And so, of course, if that's your definition of freedom, you're going to be careful about tying yourself down. And he goes on. But I think my favourite definition is the capacity for, or the freedom to do something. If you want to have the freedom to really play the piano, you have to chain yourself down to the piano and practice every day. And so, he continues, freedom is not absence of restraint, it's choosing the right restraint. And that's commitment making. Commitment making is in part a choice to forego future choice. Our commitment to a Torah lifestyle, our renewed commitment to being a servant of God during these 10 days of repentance is, like Isaac before us, the decision to choose the right restraint.